I'm on my way later this week, to Washington. I've been asked to represent Iowa at the Radio Row for the Federation for American Immigration Reform. I'll be there for 2 days broadcasting, talking to as many politicians as I can. I'm going to try to get the out-of-control immigration issue under control. And I know it's a constant struggle. And the level we're talking about, the struggle is, we all know what the problem is, but we can't get the solution. And I will assert, much like in the Noreen Gosh case, why accountability is not forthcoming, because there's too many people within the system who are corrupt and have been corrupted by it to get it done. And the money is on the other side. Of the American people want it fixed. The beneficiaries and recipients of the presence of people who are not here with our permission, they're the ones that fund the political movement. The majority of the American people get outvoted by scumbag politicians that can't get past the vested interest groups that control the political class. And all right, so this was on TV 13 last night. If you've been following along, there was a news story on Saturday. There was a fellow who was in Iowa illegally. He was trying to get refugee status because he said if he went back home, the Mexican drug cartel will kill him. Well, he wasn't able to block the deportation order. They sent him home, and the Mexican drug cartel killed him. Here's the story on TV 13. Listen carefully to the language.
And now dozens are rallying for a new law after a former Iowan got murdered following his deportation to Mexico. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Dave Price. Friends and family held a vigil this afternoon for Constantine Morales. Morales moved to Iowa but was not here legally. The U.S. government denied political asylum and deported him to Mexico, where the drug cartel eventually killed him. Jody would government for his death and now want to change the law because of what happened.
We ask that you please do the family of Constantino.
Family, friends, and strangers of Constantino Morales pray.
We want to send all these things.
Yes, he was an undocumented citizen from Mexico, illegally living in Iowa. But to those at his vigil, that title meant nothing.
He told me that no matter what challenging situation may occur, that I can always do something to improve the situation, to change the situation.
I think it truly inspired a lot of people who live in so much fear. Morales was known in the community as a leader for immigration reform. He came to Iowa a couple years ago and left his job as a police officer after receiving numerous threats from the Mexican drug cartel. He definitely feared for his life. In 2014, Morales was deported. Last Sunday, he was shot and killed by the cartel. His twin brother is still in shock. My brother had called me and said, "Have you heard the news that Constantino was killed?" And I laughed to myself because I didn't want to believe it. I didn't think that it was true. Prior to his deportation, Morales applied for asylum, saying he feared for his life. That wasn't enough. A local advocacy group says the law needs to change to help people in similar situations. The asylum law is far too narrow. We should expand it to recognize that, especially in the case of, Central and South America as it is now, with just as much violence is going on, that people can fear for their lives without fitting into one of these categories. Family members call what happened an injustice, but will continue to use what happened to Morales as a reminder of what they say needs to change. The bottom line is that we just want to have equal rights. We come here in search of opportunities with our families, and we just want the right to work and live openly and live peacefully. Those at the vigil wrote letters to lawmakers pleading for change. Members from the Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement will hand-deliver them next week in D.C.
All right, this is a fascinating story. It is a tragedy, and I feel terribly for the loss of life from that family. But that story is littered with spin and deception and propaganda. And especially in that, all we want is equal rights. wait a second, you're not entitled to equal rights. Who's not entitled to equal rights? The people who are not here legally. You want something that's equal that you're not entitled to. You're not entitled to work here unless we say so. You're not entitled to be here unless we say so. That's the theory, anyway. I wish it were different, but your claim for equal rights when you're not entitled to them is obnoxious. And to be lectured by a group of people who are not even supposed to be here on how our laws need to change and that our asylum laws are far too narrow? I don't think so. Our asylum laws are being abused every single day by the scuzzballs in this state that operate big box agribusiness stores that put to work using refugees from the third world so they don't have to pay Iowans a living wage. Our asylum laws have been captured by the same people who used to just use illegal aliens for cheap labor. The whole thing is a con and a hustle. Their lips are moving. Now, here's the real, and I know I'm not being insensitive to the family here. I understand why they say what they say. Understand their motivation for saying it. If I had to live in a place like that, I'd want out too, and I'd go find the most gullible place on the planet to make my claims, and that would be us, friends. So anyway, here's the real culprits in this case. This fellow was murdered by the drug cartels. They're the perpetrators, not our broken immigration system. I didn't have any part in the creation of the drug cartel. Here's where I'm going to get fierce. Many of you who are listening right now have a factor in building the drug cartels in Mexico. If you use illegal drugs, pot, and anything else that comes from Mexico, you had a hand in murdering Mr. Morales. You're a customer of those scuzzballs. And the other part of this, the political class that makes drug use illegal and thereby drawing up the price of those illegal drugs, it makes it profitable for the parasite classes all over the place in this country and in Mexico to produce and traffic illegal drugs to all the potheads and druggies in the United States. It's a billions and billions of dollars a year industry. The drug cartel exists because of the appetite of knuckle-dragging druggies and potheads in this country, and made worse by the illegal classification that criminalizes stupid behavior. Two things. First off, I don't have a lot of respect for the people who bill the rest of us for your recreation. And secondly, maybe we should just declare the drug war a total loss and run up the white flag and stop it entirely, thereby taking most of the profit out of the cartels, and then they'd have to go do something else that's dishonest to make a living. So those of you who are druggies, I think you are much more responsible for the loss of life here, Mr. Morales, than our narrow refugee laws. If you don't let us immigrate to your country and become refugees, the cartel is just going to kill us. So we sent a person back to Mexico, where they have legitimate citizenship, and they get killed by the cartel. Aren't we sorry? It's our fault the fellow is dead. And it's our fault that we have too narrow of refugee laws. And all these people want to do is have equal rights to work. All of those are nice, warm fuzzies. I'm prepared to challenge all of them. After talking about the awful case, the tragic case of Mr. Morales, who's a former cop from Mexico, gets in harm's way with the cartels down in Mexico, comes up here illegally, applies for refugee status. He's denied asylum. He's sent back to Mexico last year, and it was reported in the last several days that he was indeed murdered by the cartel. It's an awful case, terrible case, and there's no way around it. Those events and the choices that were made by him and us cost him his life. I'm blaming the cartel, though, not our asylum laws. I'm blaming the cartel for, and if we're going to blame anybody in Iowa, or in the United States at all, why shouldn't we blame the people who are illegally using those drugs, causing the demand for them, and running, because they are illegal, then it causes the risk of getting busted and tossed into jail, which drives up the cost of those drugs, because criminals then are more and more aggressive in distributing them, and then they end up murdering anybody who gets in their path of easy access to money from money from the stupid Americans. All right, if we can't fix somebody's self-destructive behavior, and it is pretty obvious that the drug war and criminalizing this destructive behavior is not working, maybe we should just stop. Totally, just stop. And try nothing for a while. See what happens.